Hey Wargamers, the new Tau Codex is due out sometime in the new year, and Games Workshop has decided that now is the time they're going to start giving us a little taste, a little preview of what is going to be in that book. So on Thursday, Thanksgiving here in the US, they gave us a preview of the new pulse rifle rules and the new pulse carbine rules, which are exciting in their own right, but it's also noteworthy that they've decided to release this preview alongside previews of Custodes and Genestealer cults. We thought that perhaps Tau is being pushed back beyond a January release, but the fact that they're previewing all three factions at the same time might suggest a more tight release schedule, and that maybe we're going to see 3 codices drop in a single month. That might be interesting. I don't know if that's reading too much into it, but I'm excited about it. Either way, so let's talk about these previews. We got new rules for pulse rifles. We got new rules for carbines. What does that mean? All right, so let's start with the pulse rifle. So the new profile is 36-inch range, rapid fire 1, strength 5, -1 AP, 1 damage. So the two things that have changed there are the range, of course, and the AP. And they're both pretty exciting for different reasons. The range increasing up to 36 inches, of course, gives us 6 inches longer than we had before, which is good. Having extra range is good. But in 9th edition, 36 versus 30 isn't necessarily that impactful because of the way that terrain works and the smaller size of the board. Yes, you get a better threat bubble, but it's not providing that big of a boost compared to early editions where things were more spread out and more accessible to range. Now, it's really not as important. What's more important, though, is the rapid fire range, right? The double tap range where you're able to fire 2 shots as opposed to 1. That's where this really makes a difference. And then when we take into account some of the other tools that we can use to improve that range, it gets even better. So we're starting with the 36-inch range. If we take a pulse accelerator drone and take Bor Concept, we can bump that out to 48-inch range, which is quite formidable, right? You can basically touch anywhere on the board with that. And then on top of that, that gives you a 24-inch rapid fire range, meaning that you're going to pump out 2 shots at strength 5, -1 AP within 24 inches. That's pretty respectable, right? Like that's a good profile for your basic troop, being able to offer that type of pressure at that relatively moderate to long range compared to most basic infantry. That's not bad. But if we throw on top of that a Cadre Fireblade, the way that it's currently written, that would give us 3 strength 5 -1 AP shots within 24 inches. Not bad, right? That's almost as good as a smart missile system with advanced targeting. Not quite, but almost. And on your basic infantry, right? So that's a lot of pressure that you can put on the table within that 24-inch range if it's properly supported and configured just right. Is that going to be worth it in the long run? We have to wait and find out. In fact, we can't really say much about any of these updates aside from what they basically just say on the stat line, because we don't know what the rest of the codex is going to look like. So we can't really read between the lines here. We can't infer very much, but we can take them at face value and at least consider the possibility of how they might play out given the way the rules are currently. So, take everything with a grain of salt, but, this increase in range associated with, the improved AP is not bad. It's not necessarily game breaking, but it could be quite significant. It could be a really big boost for Tau infantry, which I think is interesting considering a couple weeks ago I was saying that I think that this codex is going to be more infantry focused. Maybe this is going down that same path still. Maybe this is feeding into that perception even more. We'll have to wait and find out. Assuming no other changes in the codex, which again is not an accurate assumption, right? There's probably going to be lots of changes. At least hopefully there's lots of changes. But assuming no other changes, right? If things stay relatively similar to their current setup, increasing the AP on a pulse rifle means that against Primaris Marines, it's 50% more efficient, right? So that means that you can basically kill an additional 50% more Primaris with a single fire warrior now than you used to, assuming that you're in rapid fire range and have volley fire as it's currently written. So that's a huge boost, right? A 50% increase is non-negligible. If you have volley fire, then maybe we're going to be looking at kind of a Fish of Fury type of setup, because not only are these guys really effective against Primaris now, but they also are one of the top choices for Tau against all other toughness 4 and toughness 3 targets. They're not always the top efficiency. So doing the math here, you can get a higher efficiency, but not always in quite the same practical package, right? You're talking about taking crisis suits or hazard suits and having to deal with some of the caveats associated with those. You really don't have to work very hard to implement a fire warrior. So they certainly could be a highly efficient and highly practical choice for anti-troops, anti-infantry across the board, which is exciting and encouraging. So maybe we're going to see the army composition really lean into these fire warriors again. Of course, the army health overall depends on more than just that, right? The problems with Tau right now are not just that fire warriors don't have quite the punch that we would like them to have. There's plenty of other things that we've talked about in the past. We don't need to rehash them now, but those things also need to be addressed in order for Tau to be viable. This change alone will not do that, but it's certainly a step in the right direction. All right, so the Pulse Rifle, I think, is probably the more exciting of the two previews. The Pulse Carbine, though, is still interesting. So the Carbine, the new profile is 24-inch range, Assault 2, Strength 5, 0 AP, 1 damage. So exactly the same as before, but now at range 24. So that gives us 6 inches longer than we had it before, but also 6 inches more than the new Pulse Rifle rapid fire profile, right? So it gives us 2 shots at a longer range than we're able to access natively on the Pulse Rifle. And that's always been the case, right? That's always kind of been the functionality of the Carbine. But it's interesting in this case because it sets it up very clearly as a choice of quantity versus quality in that shorter range, right? So if we're talking about a 24-inch range, if you want quantity or volume of fire, then you're going to go with the Carbine. If you want quality, then you're going to go with the rifle. So I think that's a nice setup to further distinguish these two weapon choices and give them a little bit more of a clear trade-off between the two. In general, I think the rifle is going to be the better choice. And so for fire warriors, we're going to see rifles, still be the go-to choice. But that doesn't mean that other things that use carbines aren't going to be positively influenced by this. One of the reasons why I say we're probably not going to see carbines really show up in fire warrior teams is because if this is the only rule change, that's not very exciting, right? It doesn't mean that it is the only rule change. I had hoped that perhaps the grenade functionality would return, and there is no mention of that here. So it's possible that it could come back. Like maybe they haven't showed us all the roles, but it seems unlikely. But maybe there's a stratagem, or maybe there's some other option in the Codex that would allow the Carbine to really shine more than is suggested here. We'll have to wait for the Codex to find out, of course. But in general, I think the Pulse Carbine is still a pretty underwhelming choice for strike teams. But for things like drones, which don't have a choice, right? Gun drones have to take carbines. It could be a pretty useful upgrade for them, right? If gun drones can have an additional 6-inch range, that means that they can offer a little bit more board control more effectively than they have been in the past. And again, 9th edition, the name of the game is board control. The name of the game is getting the objective. So that additional 6-inch range on a gun drone, not bad, right? So it helps distinguish strike teams, which again are probably going to be using rifles, versus gun drones, which are going to be using carbines and have traditionally offered greater volume of fire. It helps distinguish those two a little bit better, which is useful for points adjustments. It's useful for balancing, and I think it's a good way to help make Fire Warriors not compete with gun drones in the same way. One of the problems that we've run into in the past, on and off again, is that at times gun drones have been just flat out better than Fire Warriors, and that's not the way it should be, right? So if we're saying gun drones have to take carbines, which they do, and carbines are, more quantity of fire than quality, then that helps say, yeah, maybe gun drones could be more, could be priced in a way where they might appear to compete with Fire Warriors, but not in purpose, right? So if they don't overlap in purpose, then that pointing isn't necessarily as big of an issue, which is nice. So I'm excited about this for what it means for gun drones. I think, again, the pulse rifle is looking strong. I'm excited to see how the rest of the Codex either comes in to support this as a choice or dissuades people from spamming pulse rifles. We'll have to wait and find out. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Are you excited about either of these changes? Do you think it's going to influence the way you play? Let me know. Let's have a conversation. As always, thanks for watching, and of course, happy wargaming. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. A while ago I made my own miniature, and if you too want to be the proud owner of an Invasive Wargaming model, you can check out the link in the description below. Down there you will also find links for the Invasive Wargaming Discord server and the Invasive Wargaming Patreon. Really, this channel wouldn't be possible without the support of my patrons. Special thanks to Marcy, A Little Pink Monster, Ben B. Jones, Durza, Ever Keller, Robbie Goodwin, Jose Gomez, Ruger, Drew Pratley, Michael Byrne, Zealous Brimstone, Scott Heater, Stephen Cowan, Jared Egler, Chris Kessler, and Tao Oswell.